All right, guys, I was going to finish up this discussion on making money here. This kind of be part one. That I'll have another video that'll be part two. But we'll go a few minutes here on kind of the introduction of making money in this business. It's kind of a good quote here. Money's not the most important thing in the world. Love is, right? So that's great. Fortunately, I love money. So let's talk about making money. Okay, there's four keys to making money in stocker and feedlot cattle business. And this is important to remember and keep on top of your mind. This is something you can really take home out of this class. When I took this class a long time ago, the professor that taught it then taught me these four keys, and I still remember them today. The four keys are buy low, sell high, keep them alive, and make them gain. And if you can do that, then you got a real good chance of making money in the stocker and feedlot cattle business. And if you think about our course, it's kind of broken into three sections, and they correlate with these keys. Buy low and sell high is the economics part of this enterprise, and we're talking about that today, and we'll talk several weeks at the end of the course about buying low and selling high. And then the health part of the course is keeping them alive, right? And then the nutrition part of the course is make them gain. And so that's kind of the summary of the course, and it's the four keys to making money. So let's talk a little bit about how these industries are structured, and to kind of illustrate some of the principles that you need to think about when understanding how to make money in these industries. And let's start with cow-calf as kind of a baseline to compare to, okay? You could think about cow-calf production as a manufacturing business, okay? It's essentially a manufacturing enterprise. You're taking a cow like a factory, and you're producing a product, right? And you're selling that product into the market. The goal here is you're trying to produce calves at less than the cost of the inputs that you have: land, labor, equipment, those kind of things, right? So you need to produce calves that have value, so that you have you have some residual left over with those. After paying for those costs of inputs, right? That's basically analogous to a factory producing iPhones, right? And you need to produce iPhones, keep the cost of the inputs of the iPhones less than the value of the finished product. In this situation, you're more concerned about controlling cost and controlling input cost. Okay, so those are the things you kind of focus on in a manufacturing business, is to continuously try to reduce the cost of your inputs. Okay. Typically in cow-calf and in manufacturing businesses, there's less risk, meaning there's less opportunity for profit and loss, right? The returns, profits are kind of more stable over time. They tend to be. Okay. Now we're going to compare that to stocker and feeder cattle production. Okay. And a way to compare it is to think about these enterprises as a merchandising business, okay? More like a retail store where you're buying a product at wholesale and turning around and selling it at retail. So this is more like Walmart, where you're buying iPhones at wholesale from Apple that produced them at the factory, and then you're turning around and selling them at retail to the consumer. Okay, so it's a merchandising business. Also, this is called a margin business. You're trying to make money on the difference on the margin that you can add to the product, the difference between what you can sell it for and what you have to buy it for. Okay, so in this case, we're adding value to animals that we have purchased with the intent of reselling them. So we have an animal that we bought, and then we're adding value to it and selling it and trying to make a margin on it. Okay, so in this business, we're more concerned about margin than we are necessarily about controlling costs. Still important to control costs. I'm not saying that's unimportant, but to kind of illustrate the difference in the mindset, you realize you're more concerned here about the margin. Okay, And in this business, typically in these kind of businesses, there's more risk. Okay, there's more opportunity for profit and more opportunity for loss, and the profit and loss is not, it's more variable over time than cow-calf. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. Okay, so if you think about an extension of that merchandising approach, you need to think that the buy-sell ratio is important. Okay, the ratio of the price that you buy cattle at and to the price that you sell cattle at is pretty important. Cost of gain and value of gain are really critical numbers to know in stocker and feedlot cattle production. These numbers are where the profit comes from. And thinking about profit in terms of cost of gain and value of gain I think is a pretty useful way to think about it in stocker and feedlot cattle production. So if you're not familiar with those, let's talk about what those two terms are and kind of how you can calculate them, how you can use them. Okay. So first off, let's talk about cost of gain. This one's probably more familiar to you or more intuitive to you, but we're gonna talk about cost of gain. So break that down. Let's first define gain. That's pretty easy. The gain is just the amount of body weight that you add to cattle while you own them. Okay, so the final body weight is the body weight that you sell at, and you subtract what you bought, what the body weight that you bought. So final body weight minus purchase body weight is gain. Okay, so like here's a scenario: we buy a 550-pound steer in November, we graze it on wheat for 140 days, and we sell a 915-pound steer. Okay. So if we're going to calculate gain, real straightforward calculation, 915 that we sold minus 550 that we bought. So we added 365 pounds of gain to this animal. Okay, so our gain is 365 pounds. And that's the number we're gonna kind of key off of in these calculations. Okay, so that gain is important. So there's gain. Okay, so now let's look at the cost side of that. Let's assume that the cost of production, of producing this gain right here, the cost of production in terms of like what our pasture cost, either that's fertilizer and weed spray or seed or pasture rent, could be in there, pasture, feed costs, supplement mineral, those kind of things, all of our vet costs or interest costs. You could just keep adding costs here that are real. So let's say that we establish that our cost of production is $192 per steer. Okay, when we add all those things up, it comes out to be $192 per steer. Okay, so it cost us $192 to produce this 365 pounds of gain. Okay, so if you just divide the cost by the gain, you can see that, like I said, it costs $192 to produce 365 pounds of gain. So that's 52.6 pounds cents per pound of gain, right? Or a little over $0.50 per pound of gain. So this would be our cost of gain. Okay, this is a very common number that's talked about a lot in feedlot cattle production. Feed yards talk about cost of gain all the time. You'll hear that term used a lot. And this is kind of what they're talking about. Okay, it's the cost of production divided by the gain that you put on the animal. So our cost of gain in this scenario, these are kind of old numbers. It's probably, if you were to do this today, it'd be higher than this, but these are old numbers. But a useful example of about 53 cents per pound of gain. Okay, so now if we think about that's our cost of gain, 53 cents per pound of gain. If we're going to make money, just on principle here, you've got to have you've got to get paid more than 53 cents per pound in order to make money, right? If you're when you're selling cattle, you've got to get paid for the gain that you put on, and that what you get paid, what you get from the market, has to be more than 53 cents per pound, or you're gonna lose money. Okay, so let's talk about value of gain, and that's the revenue side. So the cost of gain is here, and then the revenue side, what you get from the market, is the value of gain, and it's a similar calculation. Okay, the value of gain is basically determining how much the market pays you per pound of gain. And the way you calculate it is you take the sell value, the dollars that you sell an animal for, and you subtract the dollars that you bought the animal for, and that difference you divide by the gain. Okay, and you look, it's real easy. If you see this is the sell value minus the buy value, this, basically that's how many dollars you took from the market, or how many dollars the market compensated you for producing the animal, right? What you sold versus what you paid for the animal. So that's the value that you added to the animal, and then you just divide by the gain to get value of gain on a per pound of gain basis. So let's do this example. We're going to buy a 550 pound steer at $155. This is $155 per hundredweight, or $1.55 per pound. Okay, so that's kind of how these numbers are used in the industry. We're going to buy a 550 pound steer at $155 in November, and then we're going to graze it on wheat for 140 days and sell a 915 pound steer at $1.30. Okay, so this is the same scenario we looked at with cost of gain. I've just added the prices in now. Okay, so we're going to use these prices to determine the value of gain. So let's plug in our formula and see what our value of gain is. Okay, so this piece is the sell value. This is what we sold, 915 pounds times $1.30 per pound. Remember, this is $130 per hundredweight, or per 100 pounds. So that's $1.3 per pound. So that's our sell weight right there. And then we subtract, this is the buy value, this is what we bought, so we subtract that, 550 pounds times $1.55 per pound, right? So we got this number minus this number, what we sold minus what we bought. That number is $1189.50, so that's what we sold, and we paid $852.50 for the animal. So we added $337 of value to this animal. Okay, so that's our value. And if we just take the value and divide by the gain, again, that one's real simple to calculate. It's the weight that you sold minus the weight that you bought, and that we know that number is going to be 365 pounds, right? So we added $337 for those 65 pounds. Do the division, it's 92 cents a pound. Okay, so our value of gain was 92 cents a pound in this scenario. Okay, and something that you can see real quickly, the value of gain here exceeded the cost of gain. So we know immediately that we made money on these animals, right? Because the value that we got from the market exceeded the cost to produce that gain. So we know that this scenario was profitable just comparing value of gain to cost of gain. Here's a really nice paper that talks about value of gain and how it changes over time, and how value of gain kind of helps you understand what decisions and production decisions that you can make in the industry. It goes back to the discussion of stocker cattle being a market balance role between the price of grain and the price of grass. As grain prices change, that change gets reflected in the value of gain of stocker cattle, right? When grain prices are really high, the value of gain of stocker cattle gets better, right? It's greater, right? When grain prices are really low, the value of gain of stocker cattle gets to be less. And so you can kind of when you start understanding value of gain, you can start using it and understanding how these relationships work in the industry. It helps you make management and marketing decisions on how you would produce stocker cattle and feedlot cattle. Okay, that's a good paper to read on that topic. Okay, that's the end of part one. We're going to go to part two.